This is Dr. Recco Richardson and Beverly Rainey for the Women and Codependency Free Workshop. And the first question is, why codependence?
Well, when Recco asked me to host a workshop, I thought of codependency because it's not a common subject to begin with, but I also find that in my clientele, there's a high percentage of them that have multiple issues going on, and codependency seems to be at the root of many of those issues.
And I agree with Beverly in the counseling sessions that I'm doing here in the Flint area and in Clarkston. The level of dependency, not necessarily on drugs, but the codependency on people and circumstances. It's almost as if there's a group of people, males and females, but we're speaking of women right now, that gravitate towards certain experiences, that those experiences continuously crop up in their lives, and it's almost as if there's some type of faulty attachment to people that bring them down, or people that end up being bad for them, or in the workplace just never being able to get over the hump in the workplace. And so it's sort of like some type of unconscious attachment or dependency on things not working out and coming up on the short end of the stick.
Right.
Can either of you think of an example of how this plays out in someone's life to make it a little bit more clear for lay people who don't quite grasp what it looks like?
Well, what I've found is there's two types. There's probably many different types of codependency, but basically two types, and that would be the active and the passive. The active type would be the person that kind of pursues and controls and dominates in a relationship. But the passive type would be more so the person that just goes with the flow. They're more so like the martyr type person, bullies, that type of thing.
And what I'm finding is with the women, they really do not want to be alone. They almost have some type of dependency on same-sex friends or opposite-sex friends. And so I've seen situations where good, wholesome women who have a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity, once they get one or two steps ahead of the game, they will literally reach back and try to bring one of their friends. They'll let one of their friends move in, or they'll call their best friend and loan them money after they finally come into a little money and get caught up on their bills. It's almost like they don't feel comfortable or accepted excelling, so they continuously put themselves in positions where they are at risk and vulnerable of being used by their best friends, by their boyfriends, by the neighbors. It's almost like there's a fear of excelling or doing well. It's like they're more comfortable. The women I'm thinking of, just getting by. And when they do get further up the road, they tend to reach back and don't have enough strength to pull those people forward, so they end up going backwards themselves.
It sounds almost like there's an element of self-sabotage to it. Is that
self-sabotage, a level of dysfunction? And I think it's key, something that Bev had touched on in her introduction on the flyer, that feeling valued and feeling the need for approval from the peer group or from family members or from exes or from the children, that need for approval and that need to feel valued, they will almost sacrifice that or sabotage any level of success, the women that we're thinking of, so that they can still fit in and have some sort of support system. And it's just not healthy. My thing is the children are watching this, and they're learning, and they're observing the relationships, the efforts to move forward and yet take two steps back. And so these are the middle school kids, these are the high school kids who tend to be the ones involved in a lot of drama and crisis and foolishness in the building, because that's what they have come accustomed to seeing, because they've seen the level of codependency and crisis and faulty attachments with their birth moms and with their grandmothers.
Right.
Do you have anything else to add on that point, Beverly?
Well, it'd also be like the individual, like say the parent who has the adult child who is living with them and maybe has been in some legal problems and maybe some drug problems, and they're making excuses for them, or even a domestic violence situation. They're embarrassed, by the situation, that they make excuses for them. They stay in the relationship.
Yeah.
They become enablers, enabling
Right.
people to remain in that situation, and then in return, they themselves become unable to move forward and almost just slip into depression or sadness because they're not where they could have been or where they were 6 months prior. I see it as a cycle. I see it a lot with good-hearted, wholesome women who have unlimited potential and who have a desire to do well. It's just this need for lack or approval, or this need to feel valued by the wrong crowd. It's a flat-out problem.
Let's use that example of the parent who has this adult child living at home and still maybe had those legal problems, still trying to get themselves together. What would that person get? What kind of benefit would they get out of attending a workshop like this on women and codependency?
Right. Well, namely, they'd be able to put a name to the condition. 40% of women, according to a New York poll, suffer from codependency. So they'd be able to be educated through the process, and they'd be able to learn some treatment strategies.
I think the other thing is they'll realize that they're not the only one.
Right.
Things will come into perspective as they hear others share their stories. And again, like Bev said, you can put a name to it, you can put a concept to it. I think also hearing the success stories of other women and others who have moved on, who have broken the chain, who have broken the cycle, who have become resilient through tough decision making, through tough love. I mean, when you are a birth parent and your adult child is struggling and your grandkids are with them, there's a part of us that wants to help them and want to provide for them. And if we have room in our home and a little extra money, we will make accommodations. But at the same time, we have to put things in place for our adult children to help them move forward and not stay stuck. Some of it is embarrassment. Some of it is shame. Some of it is feeling guilty for what we did or did not do for our adult child as they were younger and in the relationships that they saw us in. And so we understand all that, but we really want them to move forward towards being more resilient and being able to respond to and give an answer back to thoughts of not being good enough and needing someone to help them feel important and valued.
Right. And I think that also in the issue with the child, or even the domestic violence issue, they're tolerating a lot of abuse. The adult child could be physically violent toward the parent also, or even verbally violent. So the conference would also, help them to learn boundaries, how to set boundaries, and that it's okay to be assertive in your communication, or, you know what I mean? It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Where I think that oftentimes the codependent has a real problem with saying no, and even with teenagers, that's where you see a lot of the sexual promiscuity and that type of thing, because they don't know how to say no, or even they might think that they're selfish if they say no. So it would teach some of those skills also.
And another one of the benefits for a typical layperson, or those of us who are working with women who have some codependency issues, is the level of positive energy that will be at the workshop. As we have taken various workshop topics throughout the Midwest and throughout the Mid-Michigan, the professionals who come to the workshops, they say, this was just a good environment to be in, to get information, to get suggestions, to get interventions. I feel empowered. I feel like I have a better grasp of what has been shared. And so it's the positive energy. It's the networking. It's being in that environment where iron sharpens iron. And so as people will come in, whether they're working professionals or women that are struggling with codependency, I think it's strength in numbers.
Yeah. And I guess just one final thing, I wonder if either of you has a success example of what success might look like. Not major details or anything, but of anyone who had struggled, quite a bit with this issue of codependency, and they're on the other side of it now. Do you have those kinds of success stories that you can share at the workshop?
I've got several of them. I know of some of the birth parents of the kids that I've been seeing in counseling, and I remember several of the parents. They were working decent jobs, $10 to $12 an hour, doing direct care in nursing homes. And as they saw me working with their teen daughter or teen son, they began to ask questions about, well, how do I break through? How do I get out of the rut that I am in? Because they have become accustomed to things not working out. They have become accustomed to feeling a day late and a dollar short. And so I eventually started seeing some of those mothers in individual counseling and just finding out what was really in their heart, finding out what they really believe they were purposed to do, and the things that they were interested in, and their creativity, and the things that were their passion. Some of them went back and finished their high school diploma. Some of them enrolled in college. We've got 2 or 3 of them that are working on their master's degree. And as a result of that, they feel empowered. They've started ministries themselves. They've started working with women in the community because they're empowered. They're no longer codependent on trauma and strain and stress and things not working out. They have more say in their future and in the things that they desire to do.
I would agree with that, and I know somebody that is still in the recovery stage, and the recovery stage it depends on how much effort you're willing to put into it, can last for years. But this individual is in a stage where she has started to develop. She's started to put her foot down. She's no longer the martyr. She's no longer going to be the footstool. She's lost some very valuable relationships that she thought was valuable to her, but she started to come into the stage where she's reestablishing herself and reestablishing new healthy relationships and seeing what those are supposed to look like. And when that codependency starts cropping back up, which sometimes it will do, she's now able to recognize it right away and put it back in its place.
That's incredible. So this is what everyone can look forward to in the workshop on January 20th.
And the response, the RSVPs are coming in. I think we posted this and mailed it out within the last 6 or 7 days. And there are people who have RSVP from the Lansing area, which is Beverly's area. We've had people from Midland, Michigan call in the RSVP. Of course, we've had people from Flint who have emailed and said they were coming. We've got medical doctors who say they're going to be there. Some elected officials have RSVP'd. And so it's just a good cross mix of people that will be there. And I think it's going to be special. I think it's going to be one of these workshops, topics that we repeat somewhere else in the near future because it has the potential to really help a lot of women. And when you help women, you help children also.